Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the Rules of Engagement. As always, I'll be your host, Nick axslav ranish, and today we're going to go over yesterday's Stephano vs. Titan match from the MLG Winter Season Showdowns matches. And then, of course, if you were just watching today's match between Bly and Mana, that will be analyzed tomorrow. So stay tuned for that analyzation tomorrow. But right now, we're going to go over Stephano vs. Titan, games 1, 2, and 3. A very dominant performance by Stephano. We're going to take a look at a couple of the aspects of his play that makes him such a dominant player. So starting off game 1 on Daybreak, a couple key things I want to talk about there are going to be starting off basically how to defend the early game Protoss pressure in a very, very efficient manner. And then how to get extra value out of any extra units you made, maybe over defending, or maybe you intended to make those units anyway. Basically getting value out of your units in the early game of Zerg. And then the criticalness of keeping track of opposing forces and how important that is to Starcraft 2. So let's jump into this game here and take a look at exactly the position Stephano's in. Now, this is a position that many of you Zerg players there at home, you're in this position, you've encountered this mothership Zell pressure, and you've died to it from this exact position. You're a Zerg player, and you look at the replay, and you're like, you know what? If I look at my army size, he was like the same as me, but he's about to warp in a bunch more Zealots, and he has Mothership Core, so I lost this because I didn't have enough units, right? I needed more units here, and I would have held this attack, so next time I'm going to make less drones, I won't go to 51, I'll make more units, and I'll be okay. That's not the correct decision, okay? A great player like Stephano, what he does is he says, I should make more drones and minimum units and defend it by just good control and good micro. So first, grab your queens, focus on that Mothership Core. Get that guy out of the action. Because as soon as you focus it down and push it away, if your opponent's left with just Zealots, you can micro around those guys in circles. Queens on creep are faster than Zealots. Keep microing around. Keep your drones mining. If he targets your drones, you run them away. If he doesn't, you just keep microing in circles. And then your reinforcement roaches should be able to deal with this attack without a problem as soon as they hatch. Of course, run the drones that are targeted. Put them back to mining as soon as they aren't. Very, very cost-efficient defense from proper micro and, of course, proper focus. Make sure you're constantly building units. Maybe you missed, an inject or two on these hatcheries, but it's not a big deal. In fact, he only missed like one inject on his natural from pulling the queens. Most important thing is to defend that cost efficiently. Now, notice something else Stephano did. He could have defended that by making 5 roaches in addition to his queens and zerglings. But instead, how many roaches did he make? He made 22 roaches. 22 roaches. So a very strong, what you could say maybe is an overreaction on his part, right? You could definitely say it could be an overreaction. But maybe it wasn't, right? It's an overreaction if he just wants to defend, but he's not looking to just defend. Stephano made extra units because he wants to go and attack. He wants to get some extra value from these roaches that are crossing the map right here. So if you're ever in this position where intentionally or unintentionally you find yourself with a bunch of extra units, a bunch of these extra roaches or whatever, what you want to do is you say, okay, I should attack my opponent, right? I mean, my drones are weaker than him. My tech's not great. I just have roaches. I don't have, Mutas or Infestas or anything like that. My advantage is I got all these units, right? And I want to do something with these units, right? So what you want to do, we're going to rewind this back up and just talk about as he attacks. What you want to do as they're coming into a battle like this is basically make a priority list of what you should be doing, okay? Your priority list goes as follows. The most important thing to target down are key pylons that support key structures. If there's no easy-to-access pylon, your next key structures are going to be the cybernetics core. If you notice that, Stephano went straight for that cybernetics core. As soon as that goes down, they can't warp in sentries, they can't warp in stalkers, and of course, they also cannot, if warp gate's not finished early in the game, they can't warp units in, but it's mostly sentry and stalker production has to be halted. You then go for forges and gateways. If you take out the forge, they can't build cannons, and if you take out the gateways, of course, as soon as you take those gateways out, they can't build units. So those are the key structures. You take those key structures out, you get in the base, you do as much damage as possible, but behind it, if you don't want to commit, you keep tacking, right? You notice here, he's getting upgrades, getting road speed, getting Hydra with Sworn, getting all his tech available, But important thing there is to prioritize targeting a single building. In fact, now the damage is done, let's rewind this and take a look at exactly one very important part there. And that's the fact that as you come in here, right? As you come into this, look at this. His whole army focusing one building right here, right? It's all focusing this, that cybernetics core right over here, right? If he just attacks moves, what happens? He's got a couple roaches. Let me bring this guy up. What would happen if he just attack moves? He's going to have a couple roaches over here, attacking here. He's got a couple guys here, attacking there. He's got all these guys attacking that pylon. And he's attacking 3 different targets at once. That's not what you want to do. Instead, what you want to do is you want to have everybody going for the same thing. You have your entire roach squadron all focused on the same target. Knock it down as soon as possible. You're guaranteed to do damage. Even if your opponent has a lot of units back here, even if they have a lot of force fields they can defend, focus down key structures first to get the most value you can out of your units. Don't just throw them in there and see what happens. So going forward in this game, of course, mana eventually defends and stabilizes, or excuse me, not mana. I was just casting mana. So Titan defense and stabilizes. We just saw this. You know, some decent damage done. Good defense by Titan though. And coming out of this, you have a situation where all of a sudden, it's basically just pausing again. The economy is fairly close. Stephano's a slight advantage, but it's 3 base to 3 base, right? Stephano's 4th is halfway done, and Titan has a tech advantage, right? It's debatable, but he's got access to air units. He's got immortals. He's got sentries. And in standard Starcraft 2 theory says that's a stronger tech than Roach Hydra, all else being equal. Of course, ideally he'd have access to those Colossi, but you know, that's another story for another day. Now, the next thing that's important is if it equalizes in this position, you know, neither player has a distinctive army advantage. You can see here both armies are roughly even. No one can kill the other person. Especially on Daybreak when you have to go through chokes, typically where your opponent can set up great concaves. The next thing that's very important to do is to always make sure you keep track of your opponent's forces. If you're in a situation where it's sentries versus stalkers, or sorry, sentries and stalkers versus Hydranus or Roach Hydra combination, the positioning is key, right? The positioning here is why Titan couldn't go down this ramp. It's because there'd be such a great concave from Stephano. The positioning is why, as we go forward here, Stephano can't come down this ramp because he'll get cut in half by force fields, right? Positioning is super key to these mid-game engagements, right? So because positioning is so key, we can see here Stephano's afraid to go down there. What's extremely important is to keep track of your opponent's army, right? So if we jump in and look at basically the map and where Titan's at right now, Titan's in a decent position. As time goes on, he'll get more force fields. He can add Colossi to his force and make a very strong composition, while Stephano's stuck on Roach Hydra. His army is right here, right? This is where his army is. Now, it's ideally positioned to defend this spot right here, and he can easily take a very good concave here, right? Or not, it wouldn't be a concave. Protoss doesn't really want concaves against Zerg, and against Roach Hydra. What you want to do is just make the battle area as small as possible so you don't have to use many force fields. So he can defend that spot very easily. And he can also defend this spot semi-okay, as long as they come along this side. If they come along the top, it's a little bit further out, so he's not quite ideally positioned to defend that. But he's kind of okay where he's at right now. But what he needs to do is, what if his opponent comes around the top and slips units into his 3rd, or even pushes down here, right? He has no idea about these paths. So what he needs to do is he needs to have detection everywhere, right? He should have an observer here, and then he should probably have an observer up here too. And then that way, no matter where his opponent goes, he can keep track of his opponent. Now, of course, Stephano, being a very observant Zerg, is going to know where his opponent's observers are on the map. You can notice the blur, you can have overseers, etc. And he says, you know, my opponent's here. If he doesn't have vision on this area, why don't I just have my army come up here, right? He threatened over here, and then he kind of retreated back up this way. And I can just loop around here and loop around here. And then all of a sudden I have this giant area that's going to be very difficult for my opponent to force field me, right? And so this is why it's so important to have detection. Because as we can see here, Titan's stuck in this position here. He's down here. And from his viewpoint, right, we're looking from Titan's viewpoint, he doesn't have that vision of this key pathway. And so he's sitting here ready to guard this bridge, And okay, it's like, okay, I can guard this bridge too, right? I just force field here, and then I crush him, right? I just absolutely crush this army force fielding here. But unfortunately, what happens is he missed all the units that came across the top path over here. And really, what he thinks he can crush this army, there's a separate segment over here. He can't deal with this type of spread, and so he's got to back away. Backing away, he used a bunch of force fields there. He just lost 3 of his high-energy sentries and Immortal, used more force fields. And now, all of a sudden, he's in a much worse position units loss-wise, and Stephano can go on to win the game. So the key thing here was that crucial aspect, if we jump back, let's jump back to this screen here really quickly. The crucial aspect here was just the lack of noticing the units coming across the top. Of course, if he noticed them coming across the top, well, all he had to do was just reposition his force right here, and then he can cut off this army here and kill this while he puts force fields over here, right? And with that type of defense, he could just totally focus on half the army, force feed out the other half, he'd be in great position. Unfortunately, he missed that crucial map awareness, and if you miss that crucial map awareness, you let your opponent get to better position. That's not good, and that's what makes Stephano a great player. That's how he defeated Titan in game number 1. Take a short break, and we'll be right back with game number 2.